Join internationally renowned mindset and performance expert, KATHRYN ORFORD.
Hi there, everyone. Welcome back if you've watched the podcast before, or welcome if this is your first time. So, welcome to the Champions Mindset, where we unlock the mental performance strategies that turn pressure into power and potential into results. So, as you heard, I'm your host, KATHRYN ORFORD, and today's guest is someone who has truly mastered the art of playing to win. Joel Block is known as the advantage player. He's a former professional blackjack player who used his razor sharp decision making skills to build a career as a venture capitalist, business strategist, and keynote speaker. He's analyzed over 1,000 companies, helped leaders spot trends long before they hit, and teaches people how to start playing catch up and start playing ahead. What makes Joel fascinating and why I wanted him on the show is that he understands what it takes to stay calm, make brilliant decisions, and win under massive pressure. And that mindset is just as crucial on the basketball court, in the boardroom, or in the classroom as it is at the blackjack table. So today we're going to dive into how you can think like an advantage player, how to train your mind to spot opportunities that others miss and bounce back or forward, as I prefer to say, from setbacks and play to win instead of playing not to lose. So, buckle up. This is going to be a masterclass in performing under pressure. Welcome to the Champions Mindset, Joel.
Our guest today is Joel Block. Former professional blackjack player and card counter, Joel was a member of one of the most elite teams to ever play the game. He regularly took money from Las Vegas before heading to that giant casino on Wall Street, where he spent most of his career in venture capital and hedge funds. Joel has done over $1 billion, with a B, dollars in deals, and what he learned about winning by playing at the top of his game will enable you to think, see, and act differently so you can make winning inevitable.
So let's start at the very beginning, Joel. How did you get onto that very first blackjack team?
Boy, that's a fun story. When I was in high school, I bought this book called The Memory Book by Harry Lorraine and Jerry Lucas. Just it's a way to kind of get your memory to be better. And not everybody's born with a great memory. I have an okay memory like everybody else, but there's really an art to having a great memory. And so I started practicing. I was learning how to memorize things, and one of the chapters in the book was how to memorize decks of cards. You could shuffle up the deck of cards and you could memorize them forward and backward, and the 13th card, the 17th card, and there's a whole system to this, and it's fascinating. And I thought to myself, God, if I could memorize decks of cards, I could probably go to Las Vegas and take money out of those casinos. And keep in mind, I was only 20 years old. I mean, it was.
Wow.
And so I bought a book on blackjack, and I realized right away that blackjack is not a memory game. There's nothing memorization really about it. And I started practicing. And I don't know, probably 3 or 4 months into practicing, my dad calls me and he says, "Hey, there's this seminar on how to take money out of casinos, how to count cards. Do you want to go to the thing?" I said, yeah, I'd really like to go. And, blackjack was really kind of created. The game, of course, has been around for a long time, but computers started analyzing how this all works in the early 1960s. And they started writing books on blackjack in the 60s and through the 70s. And by the early 1980s, like 1980, which is when I was playing, consumers were starting to be exposed to the idea that they could beat the house.
Ah.
This seminar was. So I went to this seminar. I didn't take the seminar, but I went to this seminar, and that's kind of how it all started, for me. So, that was really the beginning.
So you didn't take the seminar, but what did you learn by doing that?
Well, so at this seminar, when it was over, I go up to the guy, and he was pitching a class. I mean, that's what he was taking, pitching. I
Ah.
went up to the guy and I said, "Hey, that was really a great seminar." He says, "Well, are you buying the class? I said, no, I'm not buying the class. He goes, well, why not? I said, well, I already know how to count. He goes, oh, you do? He said, if I took a deck of cards out of my pocket right now and I took one card off the top, put it on the table face down, how fast could you look at the other 51 cards and tell me what card was face down on the table? I said, I could do that in 18 seconds. And he goes, 18 seconds. He goes, wow, that's really good for a beginner. For a beginner. I said, well, how fast can you do it? He said, I can do that in 7 seconds. And I fell in love. That moment, I found the guy that I wanted to be my mentor. And he goes, joking aside, I'm kind of kidding. He goes, I don't want you to buy this course. He said, I've never met a beginner who could count in 18 seconds self-trained. Without professional training, I've never met anybody that could do that. He goes, I want you to come over my house and we're going to play cards. And he scouted me out of that audience. Most of the people who were there, he was there to sell them a course. But when I showed up and told him I could do it in 18 seconds, he said, basically he was thinking, I want this kid on my team. And he spent the next 3 months teaching me. I was there. I went to his house every day. I was at UCLA at the time. I went to his house every day after school, and we played cards for 5 hours every day for 3 months. And at the end of 3 months, they invited me onto their team, and we ended up going to Las Vegas every single weekend from then on. And that's how I got started in blackjack.
Wow. That's an incredible story, John. So I've never heard, by the way, of someone attending a seminar where they're actually pitching for you to do the course, but then you get told, oh, you don't actually need the course. I just want to mentor you. That's amazing.
Well, listen, you know what? It was an extraordinary situation. And, but it says something. Number one, all of us are scouting for people all the time, and other people are scouting for us all the time. And number one, if I'd have said no to my dad, I wouldn't have gone to the seminar. You have to say yes in your life. Yes. Saying yes is really the most important success vehicle that there is. And if I had said no to the guy who invited me to his house, nothing would ever happen. And that really was foundational in my life. I played every weekend, and I was on this team. I played some solo. I learned to play by myself. And then there were 7 of us on this team that would go into a casino. We'd go into a pit. We'd take over the pit, and we would make money together. And that's how blackjack plays. It's an amazing game, and we had a lot of fun.
So when you were playing on that team, you were saying you played as a team.
Yeah.
Did you split your winnings?
Well, if you ever saw the movie 21 with Kevin Spacey, that's exactly how it worked, where there'd be one player would sit at each table. So I was one of the players, and I'd sit at a table and I'd play minimum stakes, $5. I just play $5, $5, $5. And then all of a sudden the deck would get hot. I could tell, based on what we knew about the deck, that the cards were very, very good, ready to come out of the chute. And so I'd give the guy a symbol like this, whatever the symbol was. And the big man, the guy with all the money, $1,000, $5,000, he laid out a big bet. Now, he didn't know what the count was. So I'd give him a hand signal, and I would tell him, based on what I knew about the deck, how to play his hand. And I would tell him when the cards cooled off, and he would leave, and he'd go to the next table, somebody else in the pit where the deck was hot. And that's how we did it. We played for a couple hours, and it's very difficult for the casino to spot this. This is one of the great techniques. The game is called Big Man. And so, he was either going to be some kind of a Silicon Valley billionaire, millionaire kind of guy that was wandering around drunk, and he would lay his money down, and he was kind of acting. And I'm just playing $5. Everybody sitting at the pit was playing for $5, and they would call him over when the deck got hot. And that was how we beat the house. And, when you play by yourself, there's different kinds of games, different kinds of ways that it works. But that was an awful fun way to make it happen. Now, you would think that we would split the winnings. That's what would happen. So there was a guy that owned the team. His name was Jerry Patterson. He was a very famous gambler out in New Jersey. He's the one that put the money up, got the whole thing going. And so he got a slice. I don't know, whatever his slice was. But remember that I was only 20 years old. I didn't know anything. At that, I literally didn't know it. I didn't even know I was supposed to get a cut. So
Oh,
no, they didn't give me a cut. What they gave me was $200 a day.
oh,
So Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I got $600. Remember that I was in college. I
yeah,
was
that's a
20, I
lot
was
of
a kid.
money. Yeah.
So for me, to go to Vegas, be treated to the best dinners, hang out, have the most fun, do all this crazy stuff, and get $2,500 a month was all the money in the world. And I had an enormously fun time. Um, I don't know how much everybody else made. I didn't even know that I was supposed to get a cut. Now there's a lesson there. You got to know what you don't know, and I
Yes.
didn't know. So I was very very happy with $2,500. I went back and forth to Las Vegas on the weekends, had the most fun of my life. And it just that's the way it was. But enormous lessons came out of that. Am I disappointed that I didn't get a big cut? Yeah, you know what? I made plenty of money later on. Not a big deal. But I learned a lot, and that was really fun.
Yeah, it was priming you. It was creating a foundation for what you used after that. So
Yeah.
let's dive into that mindset because what you've mastered under pressure at the blackjack table apply and all sorts of other places on Wall Street. It applies everywhere from sports arenas to business boardrooms. So in blackjack, you're making fast decisions with money on the line. How did you stay calm in that kind of pressure cooker?
Well, first of all, there's a system, and the system tells you exactly how to bet, tells you exactly how to play the hands, tells you exactly what to do. So I knew exactly what to do. I wasn't exactly making it up as I went along. That doesn't exist, and that's true in business too. You need to be so crystal clear about what your objectives are, about what your plans are, about what you're doing, that you're not making it up as you go along, and that helps you to stay calm. Uh, Blackjack, I've never been in a situation where the swings are so enormous. You could be up thousands of dollars, one half an hour and down thousands of dollars the next half an hour. And the reason that most people fall out of the game is because they can't handle the swings. The swings are just astronomical. And that is really difficult. I think poker probably could have similar swings if you're playing for big money. Uh, on Wall Street, you certainly are under an enormous amount of pressure. But if you know what you're doing and you have a plan, having the plan and working the plan goes a long way to helping you stay calm.
Yeah. Can you share a story of a time when you did feel massive pressure? In fact, so much pressure that it might break you, whether it was at the blackjack tables or later on,
Yeah.
and what pulled you through?
Well, I'll tell you a great story. I left the game of blackjack after a couple of years because I knew that there was a bigger future for me. I was only 20 years old, and the people I was playing with were 35 and 40, and they were using me. I was just a kid. I was a smart kid, and they knew they could make a lot of money on me, and that's what happened. Nothing. And listen, I don't fault anybody for that.
Yeah.
Listen. I would maybe do the same thing, and you take advantage of younger people. That's unfortunately how life works. You got to pay your dues in this world. But I ended up graduating from UCLA or graduating college. I didn't stay at UCLA, but I went to work at Price Waterhouse, the giant accounting firm, and that's really where I kind of found my footing. And for the most part, ended up in the real estate syndication and venture capital world, which was kind of a Wall Street business, and that's what I ended up doing. But we started this little real estate syndication firm, which is a business where we aggregate money from investors, and they gave us the capital, and we went out and bought things. And so we bought our first little deal, and that worked out just great. We closed it. We got $7,500 from 22 different doctors, and we did our first deal with $165,000, and we're all feeling good about it. And then we put an offer on a property for $2.1 million. I mean, really kind of going to the next level for us. And we called our investors, and none of them were interested in this deal. They just didn't like the deal. They just thought the deal was just terrible. So we were very upset about it. So I called the owner of the property, and I said to this lady, she was an elderly lady, a widow, and I said, listen, we're unfortunately not able to raise our money. Do you think we could have our money back? We had given her $25,000, which we had to borrow from a bank because we didn't have any money. And the lady says, no, I'm not giving your money back. You boys wasted my time. This is just ridiculous, what you did to me here. I said, well, okay. We'll keep trying. We'll keep trying to raise the money. We still have time on our contract. Anyway, so we call our attorney. And, one of the things that I believe is that I'm a big fan of Sun Tzu, which is the art of war. And Sun Tzu says, if you know your opponent as you know yourself, you'll never lose once in 1,000 battles. And I thought, what could we learn about the lady, her attorney, about kind of who she is, that maybe we could use to our advantage? So I called our attorney and I said, look, this is the attorney that she works with. This is his name. Why don't you look up the guy, see if there's something you could learn about him, and maybe there's something we could find out. And he comes back to us. This is in 1987. And he says, the guy just lost this big asbestos case. And he was like the managing partner of this giant firm in Los Angeles. And asbestos. Okay. So we called an asbestos company and we sent out these inspectors to our property. And it turns out they came back with a trace amount of asbestos in the building, just like basically none, but just called trace. So I called a lady and I said, listen, we found the money. We're ready to go, but we need to have a meeting with you and your attorney present. Well, why do you need my attorney present? We need to have this important meeting and your attorney needs to be present. All right, fine. So she sets up the meeting. We go to the attorney's office, top floor of this giant building in Los Angeles. We're a couple kids. Remember, we were 25, 26 years old, something like that. And we walk in, and remember, I have an iron gut. And I said to this attorney, I said, look, we found the money. We're ready to go. We're very excited about the property. Unfortunately, we're not able to move forward.
Wow.
What does that mean? What do you mean you can't move forward? Well, unfortunately, the building is filled up with asbestos from ceiling to wall, wall to wall, ceiling to ceiling, floor to this and that. So unfortunately, we're not able to move forward. The attorney turned almost green. This was his kryptonite.
Yeah.
And he's like wiping his forehead. He's sweating. He asked us to stand. This is like a 60-year-old man, by the way. He said, we need you to step out of the office here for a few minutes. I was with my partner. The two of us step outside. He must have told her, look, whatever you have to do, you dump this property and you give whatever these boys need. These silly boys will take it from you. They don't know anything about anything. So we come back in and they said, well, how much do you think it would cost to remediate the property, to take care of the problem? I said, well, it's probably about $400,000. Well, if we gave you the 400,000, do you think, would you do the deal? Yeah, I think we would do it. Well, and would you sign, documents, releasing us from responsibility? Yeah, of course we would. We ended up doing that. We went back to the investor, told him we got 20% discount, and sure enough, that was really our first really big deal. I mean, that was a pressure cooker situation where we were about to lose our entire deposit. And because we remained calm, because we kind of figured out what their kryptonite was, we kind of learned something about the other side. We managed to hold it together and put together what was an extraordinary deal because we got a 20% discount on the property. And, now could they have done more due diligence? Could they said, hey, listen, we're going to send our own inspectors? They could have done any of those things. But this was his kryptonite, and it paralyzed this attorney. The attorney literally was just so freaked out by what we told him that he just rolled over. So there you go.
It's an amazing story. So pressure is one thing, but knowing what to pay attention to, which is what you did, and spotting patterns and signals is a whole other set of skills.
Yeah.
So in blackjack, you track cards. In business, you track market signals. What do you think is the equivalent if we bring it back to the sports world, to sports performance?
Well, let me put it like this. We have a little acronym. We call it TSA, just like at the airport. Think, see, and act. Advantage players, advantage players, by the way, are what Las Vegas calls people who can beat those unbeatable games. You play with an advantage. And the truth is, we all want to play with an advantage. We all want to win. And in American culture, there's a winner in everything. There's a winner on Dancing with the Stars. There's a winner in every football game, baseball game, World Series game, Super Bowl. There's always a winner. And we love winners in the United States. And we need to remember that in business. And in business, if you play hard, you work hard, you find the advantage. And I'm not talking about manipulating or cheating or doing anything wrong, but there's always an advantage that you can find, that you're good at something, you're better at that than everybody else. And you need to really hone your advantage, because that's really where your edge is. And so when you find your edge using the principles of think, see, and act, advantage players think differently than other people. They see and notice what other people don't, so they can take actions that other people won't. And those three things together almost always define the mindset and the action profile of an advantage player.
TSA again.
Think,
see,
and act.
Yep. Okay.
Advantage players think differently, they see and notice what others don't, and they take actions other people won't.
Love it. Now, you've studied over 1,000 companies. What do you think separates a winning culture from the ones that kind of, flame out, basically?
Well, that's a great question, and I'm going to say something that is probably controversial. Most of what I have to say is a little bit controversial. Most companies cater to the middle. I cater to the top, and I cater to the top because the people at the top, that means I invest in the people at the top. I educate the people at the top. I train the people at the top, and I do everything that I can for the people at the top, for my top performers. Now, in my experience, most top performers in most companies are great, but they're still not advantage players. They're not elite people. The fact that they're the best people at a company doesn't make them the most elite. Keep in mind, I spent my life in the snake pit with some of the toughest business people in the world, and CEOs of companies, and investment bankers, and Wall Street traders, and attorneys, and accountants. I mean, really tough, highly sophisticated people, and that really, you learn something. And so my experience is that really you got to cater to the top. And then what happens is the people at the middle will say, hey, that looks pretty good up there. And you're building a club. It's a club that anybody can join if they're willing to do the work.
Yes.
And so the people in the middle reach up and say, you know what, I'd like to be part of that. I find that American businesses really tolerate mediocrity. They tolerate people that really don't do enough. And I love sports. I love the metaphor of sports. And what I think about is, if your team said, you know what, we're good enough the way we are, fans would be so mad they wouldn't be able to control themselves. Good enough is like an insult in the world of sports, and it's an insult in the world of cards. Anybody who's a professional would never say that they're good enough. Well, what if we're already good? Well, there's good, then there's great, and in my world, and there's advantage players who are elite.
Yes.
And if you're not playing at that 1% level, if you're not working, and so basically we work with people who are in the top 10%, and then probably the next 10% that are aspiring or have the potential to be those advantage players in the top 10%. And those are really the people, and we fine tune those skills, and we help those people to really, use TSA, where they think differently, they see and notice, they just identify things that other people miss. And there are hints, tells, signs, and cues around us. They're everywhere, but most people simply don't pick up on them.
Can you think of a particular sports coach in any of the major sports here in the US that actually has that knack?
I can't. I'm a sports fan, but I'm not a sports fanatic, and so I can't give you a coach. But I think that almost every one of them has to have these skills, because they're bringing the best out of people who are already the best in the world. And to make the people who are the best, in high school, you're pretty good. And then in college, you're really good. And then they pick the top 1% of college. And those are the most elite people that eventually get into the professional ranks. And that's true whether it's soccer and you're coming into, it's a different country, a different farm system, whatever it is. The people who are the best tend to think in a certain way, which is different than other people. They tend to hold themselves to a different standard, and they tend to have an expectation that's different. They have a mindset that's different. Their ability to concentrate is honed and different. These people really put themselves in a different place. And that's what I want business athletes to be able to do too, is I want business people to be able to compete, because so many companies, they really rely on their own momentum. Some of the largest companies in the country, it's not that they're great companies anymore. It's that they just have so much momentum that it's hard to knock them off their perch. But if you think back over the last 20 or 30 years, which is kind of our lifespan, there's been an awful lot of really, really big, old, famous companies that have been knocked right out of the box by these upstart companies that are hungrier, that are stronger, that are more visionary, that are more creative, that just do things differently. And they notice opportunities. They see and notice what other people don't, and then they take actions other people won't. And that's the advantage player mindset.
Yeah, I love it. So, quite a lot of the people that I'm coaching are elite teenage athletes that want a college scholarship. And I say to them, you have to practice your physical skills and your mindset skills to the extent where don't practice till you get it right. Practice till you can't get it wrong.
Yes.
Yeah. And so many of them are, even I've seen, my favorite team, the Denver Nuggets, really choke when I could see when they were playing out of fearing failing. So instead of playing to win, right? Because the pressure was on. So how do you see failure? Is it data? Is it tuition? Is it fuel? How do you see?
Well, you know what? Number one, the potential of failure fuels me. I mean, it fuels me a lot. So that's number one. But I just think that I think that winners don't see any other possibility. And one of the things that I would ask these young people is, what game are you playing? Are you playing the game to win? Are you playing the game not to lose? If you're playing it safe, you're playing not to lose, and
Yeah.
that means you've already lost, because your competitor is playing a different game than you, and they're gonna clean your clock,
Yeah.
and that is really a very significant component. So you really want to make sure that whoever the athletes are, whether they're business athletes, whether they're literally athletes that are competing at some good level, you have to make sure that they're playing the game that they're supposed to play. And failure is just not one of the things that is tolerable by someone who's an advantage player, somebody who plays at an elite level. Is that doesn't mean that you win every single time,
Mm.
but I will tell you that when you prepare properly, winning becomes inevitable. And I know that when I play cards, when I do the things that I do, winning is inevitable. I may have a setback here or there, and you learn from those setbacks, and you take that, and you kind of have to regroup a little bit sometimes. But when you come back stronger, and ultimately winning is inevitable, and you end up taking your prize.
Yeah. Well, Joel, what I love about your philosophy is that advantage players don't just react, they play ahead. I'd love to know. I've got two questions I really want to ask you. Is what were you studying at UCLA? Was it anything remotely that was going to chart this course?
No, no. I was studying economics, but I didn't like it. It really wasn't for me. So I ended up quitting school at UCLA, finishing at a local college, Cal State Northridge, which is also in California, and I studied accounting and finance, and then I ended up getting a job at Price Waterhouse as a young accountant, and I didn't like that either. I mean, that just wasn't for me. And the story is that the last account that I worked on, and I worked on some great accounts. I counted ballots for the Academy Awards. I did the tax return of the Attorney General of the United States. I mean, I did some really cool things. But the last account I worked on was this giant real estate syndicator, and a syndicator is a company that aggregates money and then goes and buys assets. And my job with a bunch of other young people was to do the tax returns of 500 partnerships. I mean, it was dreadful, terribly boring work. And so my job was to do 4 tax returns every day. So I'd come in and I'd read the partnership agreement, get the rules of, kind of see what was happening, and then I would do the tax return. And I thought to myself, I really love reading these partnership agreements. I really don't like being a tax doer. I thought I really want to be a deal maker like these guys. I mean, I love what they were doing. They were deal makers. I thought I want to be a deal maker. That's what I want to do. And sure enough, I quit the firm and met another guy, and that's the guy that we started our little real estate syndication business with. And after we did a total of 8 deals in 3 or 4 years, I rolled into a venture capital transaction, and that was the same thing. I mean, I didn't have I mean, I had a little money. I didn't really have much, but I talked my way into a Fortune 500 company and just gave them such a compelling story that they just wanted to do business with us, and they ended up writing a check for $10 million. For they invested in us. So it's listen. These things can happen. You got to have great clarity. You got to know what you're doing, and and there's actually a little funny story to this too. That sometimes you just have to pull a rabbit out of the hat. That you just have to, and that's. But winners are more likely to do this because they're prepared. So I'd convinced this big company to partner with us and give us all these resources. And about 4 months in, I got a call from the number 2 guy at the company. And he calls me and he says, "Joel, I need to see you in my office here immediately." I go, "You mean like right now?" Because like right now. Yeah, right now. I thought we were going to be fired. I didn't know what was going to happen. I thought they were going to, cancel us. And so I go to the guy's office and he goes, "Joel, I've been in this business for 30, 40 years, whatever it is." He says, "Nobody's ever, given me a load of baloney like you did. I don't know what it is that you told us. I didn't have a business plan. I didn't have anything. I just had this little prototype and this idea. I don't know. I don't know how we bit the hook and sinker and we went all the way in with you, but I need to know right now, what's the plan?" The plan? So I said, "Well, the plan," it was a newspaper company. I said, "Well, the newspaper, here's the plan, is that the newspaper is going to be running ads for our service." And the service, by the way, was delivering stock quotes, personalized stock quotes to investors by fax. So we used fax machines in like 1990, and we would make a custom fax, and every investor who subscribed would get one of these. And so the newspaper theoretically wouldn't have to print all those stocks in the paper, which they don't do anymore, but back in those days they did. And I said, "So you're going to be running ads and we're going to sell subscriptions, and I'm going to go to other newspapers around the country and get them to run ads too." And he looks me dead in the eye and he says, "That's the plan? That's your plan?" Well, no, of course that's not the plan. That's only part of the plan. And he said, "Well, I'd like to know right now what's the rest of the plan." The rest of the plan? And I'm thinking, well, of course there's the rest of the plan. So I used this technique. It's a Harvard technique. I think I read about it in one of the Harvard magazines. It's called the Pyruma method. You ever heard of this?
No. How do you spell that?
Pyruma, Pirooma, Pyruma method. And it stands for "pulled it right out of my ass."
Oh.
And I blurted out to the guy. I said, "Okay, here's the rest of the plan. The rest of the plan, what we're going to do is we're going to go to Wall Street and we're going to get one of those giant firms to buy a whole bunch of our subscriptions and give them out to their best customers." And he looks me at and he goes, "Joel, now that's a plan. That is a great plan. I love that plan." And now, what does one advantage player do to another advantage player? They always call their bluff.
Right. Yes.
He calls my bluff and he says, "Now look, here's what I want you to do. I want you on the next airplane. I want you to go to New York. I want you to work out of our New York office, and I don't want you to come back here till you lock up one of those big firms." And sure enough, I went to New York, and over the next 6 months, I did get one of those giant firms to do exactly what I said. And they knew I was telling the truth because they were sending a couple of their executives once in a while along with me to see what I was doing. And sure enough, the company we sold to wrote a check that was so big that the investor got all their cash back in 6 months. And it was a really exciting time. But sometimes you just have to bet on yourself, and you just got to pull a rabbit out of the hat, and you got to say, "You know what, I can do this," and you got to blurt it out, and then you got to go out there and you got to make it happen. That's another thing advantage players do, is they bet on themselves. We talk a lot about trust, but we never talk about trusting ourselves. Businesses, our trust, and I think a lot of it is just a lot of crap, because the truth is people don't trust themselves. They don't trust their intuition. They don't trust their capability. They don't trust themselves. And if you don't trust yourself, how is anybody else ever going to trust you?
Mm, great.
That is really the name of the game. So, I believed in myself. I believed I could do it. I was around people who told me they thought I could do it. I went to New York and I opened the Manhattan phone book to B for broker. I just started calling the big ads. And I went down there and to every one of these firms and had an appointment, and I got them all interested, and they're going, wow, this is a very interesting idea what you have here. And sure enough, I got two of them into a bidding war, and you know what? And I handled this bidding war between these two giant companies. I don't know, I was young. I was 30 years old, but at the same time, I just managed to pull it off. And that's what advantage players do. And that's, listen, I just in the last couple of years retired from running my hedge fund. And now I teach the high performers in companies, middle market companies, and even entrepreneurial companies. I teach them how to be advantage players, how to be the top of their class, because those are the people then that can pull other people up. And, I'm not a fan of DEI and giving people breaks based on what they look like. That being said, I want everybody to have the opportunity to be successful. So if you have people who you think could be successful, give them more training, give them more skills, work with them, give them more, and let them, do what they can. I want people to have an opportunity, but I don't want people to be put in a situation where they're likely to fail because they got put there for the wrong reason. And that, unfortunately, is a really big problem with some of these shortcut programs that a lot of people use. So I want people to have an opportunity, but I want them to be ready for the opportunity when it comes their way.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, you were saying that you didn't like that there wasn't I guess a correlation between what you study at UCLA and what you're doing, but it all was money orientated,
Yeah,
finance.
yeah,
Yeah. So I've got a question for you. Was there anybody, when you were growing up as a young child that because I always believe there are markers in our childhood that kind of really do kind of help us navigate our way through life. Were there any markers for you as a young child that you had some sort of skills that you ended up using?
yeah. Even though I'm a CPA and I was a CPA for a long time, and even though I ran a hedge fund and I did venture capital and I've raised $100 million and I've been involved in $1 billion in deals, even though all these things are true, if I had to nail down one skill that I have,
Mm-hmm.
the one most important skill that I have, I'm a salesman. I'm proud to say I love being a salesman. I love getting people to say yes. I like to talk to them. My dad was a fantastic salesman.
This is what I have thought. There's sure to be
And
something. Yeah.
the interesting thing is that he wasn't a sophisticated salesman. He didn't sell my dad worked in a packing house and he sold sides of beef to supermarkets. I mean, that's what he did. So it was a hard job, but he just was a great salesman. He just, I can't tell you he taught me how to sell, but I come from good stock of salespeople. Put it like that.
Yeah, and I love how Ed Milet says that a lot of times our children learn from what they caught versus what they were taught. And it sounds like you were in that. And it's the same for me. My dad was a former Australian cycling champion. I say he was my very first unofficial mindset coach, even though he had no idea he was, because that was the environment that I was brought up in.
That's for
So,
sure.
so yeah. So you say advantage players make inevitably part of their plan. Well, you say that you have to have a plan, that you have your TSA, etc. How can athletes do the same? Let's pull it back to these amazing young teenage athletes that really want that college scholarship, for example.
Well, I'd have to give a little thought to give you a good answer, on that. But
Yeah.
because listen, I'm a baseball fan, I'm a football fan, but I'm not deep in the sport. I can't tell you that I understand the intricacies of the sport. And one of the things that I know, I was a Dodgers season ticket holder for 25 years when I lived in Los Angeles. And I used to go to the ballpark all the time. And it always amazed me when and I took a lot of people with me because I had 4 seats and they were really good seats. And I took all kinds of people, and some of them were former professional athletes. And it always amazed me what they saw that I did not see.
Yes.
And they saw, okay, here's what kind of pitch is coming. Here's what's going on. Here's I had dinner with Maury Wills. Maury Wills was one of the great base stealers in the history of baseball. And so one evening I had dinner with him, and I said, have you seen this new guy? He's a skinny guy, and his name was D. Gordon, this skinny guy. And he goes, I'm his running coach. And I said, isn't he amazing? He goes, are you kidding me? I could beat him off the bag every time. I said, what are you talking about? I mean, the guy's like amazing. He goes, he's not amazing. He doesn't know how to leave the bag. I mean, he's like a great base stealer. I go, what do you mean he doesn't know how to leave the bag? He said, if he could learn to leave the bag, he'd be so much better. So, his criticism is about something that was so small that no one in the whole stadium could even see, but yet he knew that if he could improve that one thing by just a little. I mean, I don't tell companies I'm going to make people 50% better, because I'm working with their best people and they'd be happy to be 1% better.
Yes.
And really, so for great athletes, focus on 1%.
Yep.
What's the 1% thing that you can improve that would make a difference for you? And I can't tell you what it is because I just don't have the eye for athletes. I can tell you what it is in business. And if I watch somebody and, in fact, there's one of the things I'll always say is that I can stand behind a blackjack table, and in 2 to 5 minutes, I can tell you who's going to clean up and who's getting cleaned out. I mean, I can just tell which players are going to get wiped out and which ones know how to play. That was Maury Wills, looking at D. Gordon saying, the guy doesn't have the technique just right. There's something he's not doing. Now, I can't tell what it is. And by the way, he didn't even tell me what it was because it wouldn't matter because I wouldn't know anyway. Yeah. But these coaches who are highly attuned to these kinds of things know exactly what it is. And these young athletes have to be open to fine tuning, because at their level, it's about fine tuning. They're not at the 20% level or the 30%. They're at the 80% level. They've already mastered. They're in the red zone in football. And the red zone's an exciting place, but there's more turnovers in the red zone than anywhere else because the field is compressed. Everybody's on their guard. Everybody's guard is up. There's not a lot of room for error. And so it's everybody's competing in that last 20%, and you have to do things to stand out. And it's a lot more difficult to stand out in the red zone in that last 20% than it is on the first 80%, where everybody else is, playing like they're in elementary school and you're playing at the high school level, So when you're all playing with really, really good competitors, people who are at your level, you have to really, do something different.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that as well, I go back to my dance career and, teaching at the performing arts school and things. And we have, just like you did, I can go see a musical and someone will go, oh, wow, that was amazing. And I go, yeah, it was pretty good. But I'm seeing it differently because my sensory acuity has been trained to pick up all these minute little details. And that's what you've obviously trained yourself. So just finally, Joel, I'd love to know, what's your personal definition of a champion's mindset? This is twofold. And what's one thing that our listeners could do to just start becoming the advantage player in their own life? What's one little minor shift?
Number one, I would go back to TSA. That the mindset thing, it starts with TSA. Advantage players think differently from other people. They see and notice what other people don't, and they take actions other people won't. And I want to give everybody permission to think differently. Before I'll take on a client, I'll say to a CEO, we're going to open the minds of your people. And I was working with a hotel chain, and I said, it's possible, this is before the engagement began, it's possible that, they're going to put the chief of housekeeping, the chief of operations, the chief of food and beverage, all their top people are going to be in this thing together that we're all going to do. What if the housekeeping department comes back and says, the way we've been cleaning the rooms is not really a good way, where we just go down the row and we just clean all the rooms? What if they decide that they want to have one team for suites and another team for something else? What if they decide? What if they decide there's a different way that should be done? Are you going to be open to listening to these people? And if the CEO says, no, my way or the highway, then we're not a fit. We're not a fit.
Yes.
And if the person says, I would love them to come with some new ideas, because the truth is that very often it's the people in the field that know better.
Exactly.
Because they're the ones that can see, like the base coaches, they see things that the general manager doesn't see.
Yeah.
And so, one of the things that we have to get used to is recognizing, you were saying that, you saw different things in dance, and Maury Will saw something in baseball, and, I see something in blackjack. Every one of us sees things that we're good at. We're all good at something. Every single one of us, every listener here on the show, everybody is good at something, and we all notice different things. And, we have to kind of be open to the fact that different people are experts in different things, and we really need to lean into that expertise. And being open-minded about that is really, it's a really important skill set that unfortunately not everyone has.
Yeah.
So I would say that those are the kinds of things that really make a big difference.
Thank you. Now, Joel, this has been amazing. Where can people learn more about your work and follow you?
Well, go to theadvantageplayer.com, theadvantageplayer.com. We produce a churn report every year. People are welcome to download it. It's for friends of our firm, mostly for our clients, but your people are welcome to that also. So if you go to the website, they can get a copy of it, and they can learn all about, the kind of work that we do.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing so much wisdom in your stories. I love how you've shown us that winning isn't about luck. It's actually about mindset, preparation, and the courage to pull a rabbit out of the hat or make bold moves when the stakes are really high. So for everyone listening, I'm going to give you a challenge for this week. Just notice when you're playing it safe and ask yourself, what would an advantage player do here? Because sometimes the biggest breakthroughs come from stepping into the unknown with confidence, as you mentioned. So if you'd like to learn more about Joel and his work, you can find him there at theadvantageplayer.com. And if today's conversation sparked something in you, which I hope it did, that's why we do this, please share this episode with a friend or a teammate who's ready to really level up their advantage game. And as always, thanks for tuning into the Champion's Mindset. I'm KATHRYN ORFORD, reminding you to keep training your inner game, because that's where true champions are made. Until next time, go out there and play to win. Mental performance mastery for basketball success is not just about basketball success. It's about success in any sport you're playing or even in life. In it, I share my Champion's Mindset, which is the inner game. It's the inner game of winning. And I do hope you enjoy it. Download a free copy and let me know what you think.
Thanks for watching The Champion's Mindset with KATHRYN ORFORD. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you next week.